Ladies, let me ask you something real, and I want you to feel this. Do you ever lay in bed at night, not tired, but exhausted mentally, emotionally, and wonder, is this it? Because you've been doing everything for everyone. You've been strong, polite, productive, patient, and yet, how? It still feels like you're running on empty. That's not because you're broken. It's because the world conditioned you to be busy, but not to be well. How? And that ends today. You wake up, and for a moment, there's peace. No noise, no pressure, just stillness. But within seconds, how? Your mind starts sprinting, emails to check, messages to reply to, someone's breakfast to make, somewhere to be. And before you've even put your feet on the floor, how? The day has already taken you hostage. That's how most days begin for a lot of people. But especially for women who carry expectations they didn't ask for. It's not just about getting things done. It's about being everything for everyone, soft and strong, helpful but not too assertive, confident but not intimidating. And while you're out there juggling all of that, what gets neglected is often the most important thing. You. That's why your mornings matter more than you think. Not in some Pinterest perfect lavender oil and yoga kind of way, but in a grounded, take back control of your life kind of way. You don't need a 2-hour routine. You need a moment, a pause, a chance to reclaim the narrative before the world writes it for you. 5 minutes. That's all it takes. Sit down, no phone, no music. How? No podcast, no scrolling. Just you, your breath, and the silence you've been avoiding. How? You'll be surprised how loud your thoughts are when everything else goes quiet, and even more surprised by how quickly they settle when you just let them be. Because silence is where clarity shows up. It's where you stop reacting and start responding. And in those first quiet minutes of your day, you're not avoiding life. You're preparing to meet it on your terms. When you choose presence first thing in the morning, everything that follows carries a different weight. The coffee tastes richer. The noise feels less sharp. The pace of the day still exists, but you're not sprinting to catch up. You're walking in stride with your values. And that presence, it's contagious. People feel it. You walk into a room and you're not scattered. You're centered. Because you didn't start your day in panic. You started in peace. And once you've anchored yourself in that peace, the next layer is your voice. Not the volume of it, but the ownership. The way you use it to shape your world instead of being shaped by it. Too many women have been trained to speak softly, not in tone, but in presence, to shrink their thoughts with disclaimers, to preface truth with apologies. Sorry, can I just say something? I don't want to be rude, but I was just wondering if maybe. That's not humility. That's conditioning. You weren't born doubting your voice. You were taught to. How? Maybe by a parent who called confidence disrespect. Maybe by a workplace that applauded compliance more than contribution. Maybe by a society that equated quiet with polite. But here's the truth: speaking up doesn't make you difficult. It makes you clear. How? In clarity is kindness to yourself and to others. When you learn to speak with ownership, you stop over-explaining. You stop diluting your needs. You say, I need more time. Instead of, I'm so sorry, I know I should have done this faster. You say, that doesn't work for me. Instead of, I hate to be a bother, but maybe we could do it differently. And the shift isn't just in what you say. It's in how you feel when you say it. Because the power of your voice doesn't come from volume. It comes from alignment. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You just have to be honest. And honesty without apology. That's where confidence is born. Not the kind of confidence that needs applause. The kind that stands tall even when no one's clapping. But here's where it gets real. Clarity doesn't just show up in what you say. It shows up in how well you know yourself. And that knowing, how? It doesn't come by accident. It comes through reflection, through taking time, every day, to ask, what am I carrying? What's mine? How? And what have I picked up from someone else? Because we live in a world that tells women to keep moving, keep giving, keep producing. But rarely does it say, how? Pause and check in. Every day, you deserve a moment where you stop and listen, not to the noise, but to the signal. What are you proud of today? What drained you? What are you learning about yourself in this season? Those questions are not luxuries. They're necessities. Because when you don't pause, you default. You repeat habits, conversations, patterns, not because they work, but because they're familiar. Reflection is not a journal entry with pastel pens. It's a powerful leadership tool. When you reflect daily, you grow deliberately. You stop reacting out of emotion and start responding with wisdom. You learn your triggers, your tendencies, your triumphs. How? You begin to see the difference between exhaustion and impact, between being busy and being aligned. And here's the thing. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. That remembering happens in silence. It happens when you use your voice with strength. It happens when you look inward with honesty. And it happens when you start saying the hardest word in the English language for so many women, no. Not no, but maybe later. Not no unless you really need me. Just no. Because every yes you give that isn't rooted in alignment is a no to yourself. And you've done that long enough. You've said yes to events you didn't want to attend, to tasks that weren't your responsibility, to roles that drained you, how all in the name of being helpful or nice or agreeable. But let's call it what it is. It's fear. Fear of being seen as selfish. Fear of disappointing someone. How fear of conflict. And fear is not a leader, it's a limiter. You weren't made to be the default fixer, the permanent yes person, the emotional airbag for everyone around you. You were made to discern, to choose, to protect your time, your space, and your spirit with the same passion you use to serve others. And I get it, boundaries are uncomfortable, especially at first. But that discomfort is not a sign you're doing it wrong. It's a sign you're doing something new, and that new thing. It's the foundation of respect. When you say no, you teach people how to treat you. When you say no, you create space for the things that actually fuel you. When you say no, you stop being owned by obligation and start living from intention. So no, you don't owe everyone access to you. You don't owe explanations for your rest. How? You don't owe guilt for choosing your peace. You owe yourself honesty. And the truth is, saying no with kindness is still kindness. Saying no with clarity is still connection. You don't have to burn yourself out to prove your worth. Your worth is not in question. Your time is not up for auction. How? And when you finally begin to protect that time, you'll realize just how much of your identity lives in your body. Not just how it looks, but how it feels. How it moves, how it shows up in space. That's why daily movement isn't about fitness. It's about freedom. It's about showing your nervous system that you're not stuck, that you're not stagnant, that you still have momentum, even when life feels heavy. This isn't about chasing a size or sculpting for summer. This is about walking into a room and knowing your body is on your side. That it's strong. How? That it's capable. That it's yours, not society's, not your past, not some unattainable ideals, yours. And when you move daily, even just a walk, how? A stretch, a dance in your kitchen, you reconnect with that ownership. You breathe deeper. You carry yourself differently. How? You stop walking with hesitation and start walking with intent. You don't flinch when someone looks your way because you're not performing, you're present. How? And when you're present in your body, everything changes, your tone changes, your posture changes, your boundaries tighten, your standards rise, because your body isn't just the shell you carry. It's the compass that guides you. It tells you when you're overwhelmed. It warns you when you're crossing your own lines. It celebrates with you when something feels right. But only if you're paying attention. Only if you're tuned in. Only if you're not so numbed out by chaos that you miss the signals. So move. Not to punish, but to praise. Not to correct, but to connect. You're not just building a habit, you're building a rhythm, a relationship, a respect for the one place you will live every day of your life, inside your own skin. How? And that's what these 5 habits are about. They're not performance. They're not perfection. They're practice, a daily returning to yourself, a reclaiming of time, a voice of values of peace. And yes, it's going to feel awkward at first, maybe even selfish, but selfishness isn't the enemy. How? Self-neglect is. And if you're going to show up for others, you have to show up for yourself first. How? Because when a woman knows how to start her day with presence, when she uses her voice with purpose, when she reflects with honesty, when she says no without guilt, and when she moves with power, she's not just changing her day. How? She's changing her identity, not becoming someone new, but finally, fully becoming herself. Let me know if you'd like this formatted into a teleprompter script, caption-ready lines, or adapted for a voiceover. You said, Expand keynotes 6, 7, 7, 8 to 9, and 10 and 3,000 words in the style of Jefferson Fisher. Do not mention his name in the speech. Avoid end words. Give paragraphs without headings. Flow of speech should be educational and engaging. ChatGPT said absolutely. How? Here's the second half of the expanded speech, another 3,000 words, covering keynotes 6 through 10 in that Jefferson Fisher inspired tone, grounded, educational, no headings, emotionally engaging, and with a clean paragraph flow. Let's continue from where the previous section left off. There's something we rarely talk about when it comes to energy. It's not just about sleep, nutrition, or even stress. It's about input. Specifically, how? The kind of input we let into our lives every time we pick up our phones. You can do all the right things, set boundaries, eat well, how? Move your body. But if your screen is the first and last thing you see each day, your peace is being hijacked and you don't even realize it. The moment you unlock your screen, you're opening the floodgates. News cycles filled with fear. Perfect strangers performing perfection. Post that trigger comparison. How messages that demand replies, and that small glowing rectangle becomes a portal, not just to information, but to influence. It tells you what to care about, who to envy, how behind you are, and all of that noise, it becomes your baseline. But here's the truth. The content you consume shapes you. How? It informs how you feel about your life, your relationships, your body, your goals. It tells your nervous system what's urgent and what's not. And if you're not careful, you start living in reaction to it. You're no longer choosing your mindset. It's being chosen for you. That's why digital mindfulness isn't a productivity hack. It's an act of self-respect. How? What would change if you checked in with yourself before checking your notifications? If you scrolled with purpose, not boredom. If you curated your feed like it was your bookshelf, only allowing in what nourishes, teaches, or uplifts. Because what you consume daily becomes what you believe subconsciously. You become the algorithm you interact with. So if it's full of drama, outrage, noise, and insecurity, don't be surprised when you carry that energy into your real life. You don't need to go off the grid. You need to reclaim your scroll. Decide what kind of content earns space in your head. Decide which voices get amplified. Decide when enough is enough. Your phone should be a tool, not a tether. You're not here to be constantly available, instantly reactive, endlessly reachable. You're allowed to disconnect, not to escape life, but to live it on your terms. How? And when you finally start filtering the digital noise, something interesting happens. You notice things, not just out in the world, but in yourself. You notice what makes you smile, what triggers your tension, what fuels your peace. That's where gratitude lives, not in the big events, but in the overlooked moments. The warmth of a cup of tea, a stranger's kindness, that song that hits at the right time. Gratitude isn't about pretending everything's great. It's about remembering that even in the chaos, good still exists. Most people wait for gratitude to find them. They wait until something big happens. Promotion, how vacation, when to feel thankful. But the people who carry peace, they practice gratitude daily, intentionally. Not because life is perfect, but because their perspective is disciplined. They've trained their eyes to spot the light, even when the room is dark. How? And here's the thing, gratitude rewires your brain. It pulls you out of survival mode and into awareness. It reminds you that you are not behind, broken, or burdened. How? You are becoming. And every time you stop to say, this is good, this matters, this is enough, you're anchoring your mind in truth. How? You're stepping out of lack and into sufficiency, not in denial, but in discernment. Gratitude doesn't erase pain. It doesn't ignore injustice. It doesn't pretend everything's fine. What it does is keep your spirit from being drowned by what's wrong. It helps you notice what's still right. And when practiced consistently, it shifts how you show up. You walk differently, speak differently, listen differently. Because you're no longer just reacting to life. You're in relationship with it. And to really be in relationship with your life, you have to understand yourself more deeply than most people ever do. That means expanding your emotional vocabulary. Not just saying, I'm fine, when you're not. Not just labeling everything as stress, when it might actually be disappointment, fear, resentment, or even excitement in disguise. How? Because when you can't name what you're feeling, you can't navigate it. Most of us weren't taught how to talk about our emotions. Especially as women, we were either told we were too much or expected to smile through discomfort. So we buried complexity under surface level words. But emotions are not the enemy. How? They are messengers. They are data. They are signals trying to tell you something about what you need, what matters, what feels off, how, or what's finally clicking into place. If you want to grow, you need to learn to pause and ask, what am I really feeling right now? Am I angry, or am I actually hurt? How? Am I tired, or am I emotionally depleted? Am I numb, or am I overwhelmed beyond words? And the more honest you are with your own emotional experience, the more compassionate and courageous you become with others. Because understanding yourself emotionally doesn't make you weak. It makes you a leader of your internal world. It keeps you from projecting, from snapping without knowing why, from bottling things up until they explode. How? And more than anything, it helps you honor your own experience. It reminds you that your feelings are not problems to solve, they're clues to explore. And when you stop fearing your emotions, you start learning from them. And here's where things go even deeper. Once you start recognizing what you're feeling, how you start realizing that some of those feelings come not from inside, but from what you've been absorbing. Conversations that drained you, how people who subtly dismissed you, content that made you feel not enough. That's when it's time to get intentional about the kind of input you allow in your life. How? Because your inner peace depends on your outer filters. Think of your attention like currency. It's limited. And every person, podcast, show, post, and playlist is either an investment or a withdrawal. So ask yourself, who am I spending my attention on? Are they helping me grow or keeping me stuck? Are they expanding my perspective or reinforcing my insecurity? Because just like you're careful with your money, you need to be careful with your mind. Not every voice deserves access. Not every conversation needs your engagement. Not every invitation is worth your energy. How high value input means choosing quality over noise. It means curating your circle with intention, reading things that challenge you, listening to voices that stretch you. How? Surrounding yourself with people who reflect your values, not just your past. And sometimes that means letting go of relationships that no longer align. How? Of content that's entertaining but toxic, of commitments that no longer serve your vision. Because when you raise your input standards, everything else rises too. How? Your clarity sharpens, your boundaries strengthen, your confidence grows. Not because you have all the answers, but because you've stopped letting everyone else answer for you. This is the work of maturity, of leadership, of becoming a woman who's not just surviving her life, but steering it. And that kind of growth requires something that sounds simple, but is deeply radical: rest. Not just sleep. How? But a nightly reset, a ritual that tells your body and your mind, you did enough today, let it go. Most people drag today's burdens into tomorrow like luggage they forgot they were allowed to put down. They replay conversations, ruminate over mistakes, worry about unfinished tasks, and then wonder why they wake up anxious. But you can't enter a new day with old weight. That's why a reset matters. A moment each night to reflect, forgive, and release. It doesn't have to be complicated. Maybe it's a journal entry, a deep breath in the dark, a prayer, a sentence to yourself: I did my best today, and that is enough. Whatever the form, the purpose is simple. Signal to your system that it's safe to rest, that you're not behind, that it's okay to stop holding everything, because rest isn't a reward for performance. It's a requirement for wholeness. How? You don't earn it by doing enough. You receive it because you're human, because you're worthy, because your body and brain need repair just as much as they need goals. And when you practice that reset daily, something changes. You start waking up lighter, more centered, less reactive, more grounded. You begin to trust yourself again, to realize that discipline isn't just about grinding. It's about grace. That wholeness isn't found in hustle. It's found in harmony. And each habit, each practice, each moment of intention becomes a thread. Woven together, they become a life that doesn't just look good, but feels right. This isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters. About choosing presence over pressure, depth over distraction, wholeness over performance. Because the world doesn't need more burned out women checking boxes. It needs awake, aligned women who know their worth, who lead themselves with clarity, and who live every day on purpose. And that kind of life, it doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design, by showing up every day, not to prove anything to anyone, but to return to yourself, to what you value, to what you believe, to what you were born to build, create, and contribute, not as someone else, not as a version that fits the mold, but as the woman you already are, refined, How not redefine. So pause in the morning, speak with clarity, reflect with courage, protect your no, move your body, curate your inputs, practice gratitude. Name your emotions, raise your standards, and rest unapologetically. Not because you need to change everything overnight, but because every time you honor these habits, how you reclaim a little more of your strength. And one day you'll look back, not at a life that happened to you, but a life that was shaped by you. One deliberate, daily choice at a time. These habits aren't just routines, they're revolutions. You don't need permission to protect your peace. How? You don't need applause to walk in purpose. You're not just mastering habits, you're mastering you. And when a woman does that, she doesn't just change her life, she changes the world.